Yeah, so I just basically had a few questions about I wanted to know like what you guys think about Nano specifically solving a lot of things, right? Because a lot of people want Nano to be the one all be all kind of coin. Do you guys think that Nano solves everything in that sense?
What kind of attracted me to Nano in the first place was that it was very focused in its use case, like being a very good currency. And when it comes to smart, and when it comes to like other use cases for Nano, it's really more of a like ideological question when it comes to how you think crypto should be in the world and what sort of world we're sort of building and what problems are going to need to be solved in that kind of world. And there's a lot of room for interpretation when it comes to that.
Do you think that cryptos should just be basically digital peer-to-peer cash?
Okay, so my favorite analogy for this is Magic the Gathering. It's just a nerdy card game I like.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like you have these collectible cards. Each card has value, and they artificially control the value of each card through controlling the supply. And I always thought but there's certain things that you can't do in a physical format, which is like you can't have a card that randomly generates a different outcome. You need code for that.
So I got curious since I kind of want to get into some NFTs, but really don't want to buy Ethereum and pay absurd amount of gas fees. I wanted to know if Nano would solve the gas fee issue with NFTs by using Nano directly to buy NFTs.
I don't think that Nano is trying to necessarily solve that issue. While, I mean, the implementation that you would have to have, given the current way Nano is set up, is that you would need to have some sort of marketplace that would then do the transaction on whichever chain the NFT is stored on, because Nano doesn't support smart contracts and therefore doesn't support NFTs.
Yeah, Cardano or Solana or any of the proof of stake coins could. But Nano, I think, has value as the Bitcoin replacement.
So I don't think Nano necessarily is going to like revolutionize getting into NFTs, but it's not going to harm it, I don't think.
Do you think that like people not being able to buy NFTs directly with Nano, do you think that devalues it as a currency?
Nano can't be the coin that just solves everything magically. That's not exactly what it is. It's just really efficient at doing its one thing and very focused in a landscape of other coins that maybe are not as performant and not as focused.
With that being said, I've also been so curious, just like many others in the Nano community, about Nano being a private coin and or having privacy capabilities and how it would look like for Nano's landscape.
I feel like from my understanding of the Nano community, it's actually a pretty contentious issue, whether or not Nano should or should not be private. Privacy, I think some people see as a potential risk when it comes to widespread adoption, because obviously government's not necessarily going to be a huge fan of coins like Monero, where you put things in it and it's gone forever. It's like a blender, and you have no idea who's being paid what, from whom, at which times.
When people try to consider if like we should develop privacy for Nano, it's like there's always trade-offs. Like, would you want it to be like 0.5 seconds slower, and private, or what if they just doubled down on making it even faster, like 0.001 seconds to transact? What would you rather have? I mean, I'd argue that if you could be super focused on unlocking even faster speeds, that might do way more for humanity than privacy. And it's kind of like all these currencies, they're just kind of like programming languages, or like it's kind of asking like, do you think that Python should support this feature? Oh, but JavaScript does this other thing well. Well, you could use Python with JavaScript, to achieve that goal. Nano will be very good for spending, but not privately. And I don't think it should necessarily needs to go down that path for it to be extremely useful.
So Nano will never be a private coin and Nano will never be used to purchase NFTs, directly at least.
Anytime you try and turn Nano into something that it's not currently, you're going to be adding some sort of extra step that will make it slightly slower. And the more complicated the steps you try and add to Nano, like to its base functionality, the slower it will probably get. It's super fast right now because it's ultra simple, and that's kind of its strength. So yeah, whether it's NFT capabilities or any other type of thing.
Yeah, I don't mean to like piss in everyone's cornflakes here, but it can be used for both of these things, but it's going to require, like, it's not going to do it natively necessarily. A lot of the design decisions behind Nano is, we try and make everything in the block fit within one TCP packet. That means that we have the minimum number of like requests we need to send out to other nodes in the network, which means that we only have to wait for one like response. So once they get the packet, we don't need to send additional data, and that's the end of that transaction. By reducing the amount of data that you need to send to as small as possible to fit within a single message that a server would send to another server, you are like maximizing the speed at which you can do these transactions. And that is something that Nano is like achieving to a certain degree. That's why it's so fast, and that's why it's like at the speed of the internet, because the time it takes to validate the transaction is just the time it takes to send a message between servers.
Just imagine if you had a system of like air tubes, like they used to have in the olden days, where you'd like put mail in a tube and get like shot off to some other part of the building, and like you're limited to the space of things you can fit in that tube, So what if there's like 6 letters in it, But then let's say I had to like send one tube up, and then I needed to like then send another tube to record like the, NFT transaction. That's a second one. So one is like the amount, and the other one is like the address for the NFT. But let's say like somewhere along the way, that second tube like got kind of caught up behind some other tube that went, if the second message gets caught in traffic, that's really bad, that makes it really slow. So you just add more variables, more opportunities to slow down the message the more you add to it.
So I guess we'll never have additional complicated features within Nano, at least natively, right?
When you are thinking about making additions or changes to Nano, you need to sort of keep in mind that additional complexity comes with additional cost, and that comes at the cost of the things that people really enjoy about Nano,